I want to talk a little bit about, you're self-taught as an artist.
I am.
So you didn't end up in like the navel-gazing, super esoteric art school community. You didn't start there.
No, I actually went to film school.
Oh, you did?
So yeah, my parents, well, my father didn't really subscribe to the notion of being an artist. It was sort of
Like a lot of parents.
Exactly.
Like not an unfair thing.
What
for
do
them
you
to
do after you graduate? What so and for me, again, I didn't necessarily have a plan to navigate past the point of wanting to create, and that was it at that time. So I went to school for film, which was a little bit better. I could at least get a job, holding some wire or cord, exactly, gaffer or whatever. So
Boom operator.
Exactly. So yeah, I mean that was sort of the play, but there was always this, I was a creative, from a very, very young age.
So when you're like, when you're tagging a wall at 6, you started out doing graffiti, right?
Yeah.
In Chicago. There's a certain, I mean, dare I say, there's a short window of time because like the police are coming, right? In other words, like you can't stand there and like see how you feel. Like there's an immediacy to the work you're doing, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
So, but now you're in a studio. Now you're doing commission work. What's the transition of the process for you? How does the immediacy of what you started out doing still exist in today's work?
Well, I think it helped, because it was that immediacy, because it was like, okay, hurry up, get this done, let's get the hell out of here. That made the process very intensive. It was like, let's go, let's go, let's go. So the way that I apply, my sort of methodology and my approach now is very much in that way I did when I was younger, when I was doing things that were completely illegal. It's very process intensive, it's very fast, it's very emotional. And, I think that without having that sort of background where, it's hurry up, get it done, it would be obviously a lot different.
So, like, I wouldn't see you, like, stressing over, like, how to make this one line. You're in it. Like, it's...
There are those moments. I think that, to use the analogy of sort of a basketball player where, you have certain guys, say take a LeBron James or Michael Jordan, where some nights, man, they could throw a shot up behind their back, blindfolded from the bench, it would go in.
Right.
And then they have those other nights where they sort of struggle through their game and, it becomes a bit more strategic, getting fouled to get the points or, however. So I think that it depends upon the day, it depends upon the piece, but I absolutely have those days where I wrestle and I'm completely out of love with art or what I'm doing right at that moment.
So that's very interesting. So for you, in that respect, the process has to do with the degree to which you're able to be present. And if you're not really present that day, you can get the three-pointer, but you're going to have to work your ass to get it.
Yes, very much so.
As opposed to when it's kind of flowing.
Oh, when it's flowing, when I'm on, man. I mean, I'm like Michael Jackson. I'm like going over here with my eyes closed, throwing paint this way, left, right, over the shoulder.
And it's just happening.
Yeah.
All right. So, but not to over-diagram what is obviously a very kind of emotional process, but there are points when you're designing a building or when you're, I think, writing a script that it takes on a life of its own, and when you're making the right or wrong decision. When it should be blue instead of red. Like, does the canvas start talking back to you?
Well, there is that relationship, I think, with whether it's canvas, whether it's walls. A lot of times for me, because I don't sort of have an idea of what I'm going to create a lot of times. So I allow for that canvas or that space to dictate what is created.
So that's an important point you're making. As you stand there before, in this case, an empty canvas, you don't know what it's going to look like. 9
times out of 10, no. No, I have no idea. It's just, it's more about the emotion of the day. And, I think that with the work that I do, instead of sort of subscribing to conventional trappings of like the contemporary art world, whether I'm dealing with certain theories or things of that nature, I think it is more of a personal and emotional sort of process.
I mean, it sounds like action painting, and it sounds like abstract expressionists getting in front of the thing, like it's happening in real time. Your emotional state that day ends up as part of the piece.
I'm a superhero, man.
Yeah,
it's action.
Yeah,
it's what we do.
Yeah, there's so few jobs where you can wear a cape to work. He has found one of them. I want to talk a little bit about your piece in the plaza, because when you own a canvas and you're painting it and it's yours, you own every brushstroke. You're responsible for it top to bottom. We jump to sculpture now, and now there's other people. Now there's handoffs. Now there's fabrication issues. how do you deal? You're an intuitive artist. Things happen in real time, and now there's some knucklehead telling you about molds and structural dynamics and so forth.
Well, to back up a bit, I've always been a painter, an illustrator. For me, the sculpting is sort of a new trick that I've just added, and it's still hard because it is very much your baby. It's your child. So going from it's a very lengthy process. It's not like
Take us through your process on that. Like, tell us about like where you start to get there. Like, take us through the evolution of that.
Well, I sort of learned the poor man's way, not using the best clay, not using the best materials. I've used like foam installation that you would find at Home Depot for walls, carving it from that point and then adding the clay, to define sort of the features. From there, the mold is created. And I mean, this particular piece, this was actually one of the first iterations of the flyboy that I did three-dimensionally. And as you can see, both of his feet sort of look like he's wearing two left shoes. He's got a little funky thing happening with his legs there. It wasn't the greatest, but
but it's amazing. You can see like that one one didn't do it.
He's a little challenged, But it's sort of that learning curve, and it's obviously starting at this point and then growing and growing and growing, but learning to think three-dimensionally as opposed to very flat when you're dealing with painting, etc.
So what was it like for you in that moment when these things have lived both in your mind and then on the two-dimensional world, and all of a sudden, Flyboy's there, he's in the room?
Honestly, and my fiance's here, but it's better than sex. It's like that. It's complete elation. For me, it's indescribable. I mean, I think that for you, obviously, creating and building buildings, it's, seeing that finished product, like, I did that. That's mine.
There's an amazing thing where and for those who work in these trades, it's not it's a long process. But when it does actually stand before you in whatever scale, building, sculpture, so forth, it's kind of a ridiculous moment.
It's very surreal.
It is.
I had that moment when the sculptures finally came off the truck and we were placing them in the square in 401 North Michigan. And it was like, well, shit, I did this. Like, this is pretty fucking cool. And then to be further validated when the next day you're standing there and people have no clue that you're sort of the author of this.
Who you are, what your relationship is.
There are people that are, I saw grown men, that were standing in the way that the sculptures were and making sure their butt, hey man, take a picture. Make sure two small children and that sort of, interactivity that exists when you're doing, public work such as this. But it's a phenomenal feeling.
There's something interesting, I think, also about, with the sculpture, it's such a, you have to pick those designs and they get fabricated and it's very specific, right? You can't improvise that much through the process. And yet, once they exist in the public square, a whole new life of the piece exists that you didn't design.
Yes.
People taking selfies, like a whole bunch of weirdness starts happening with them, how they interact. What's that like for you to actually get to participate or see that?
Again, it's a phenomenal thing. What we did with Chicago Ideas Week, they have the youth ambassadors.
Right.
And so before creating the sculptures in its entirety, I sat and talked with a lot of them and, sort of got an idea of where they came from, their backgrounds and so forth, because I wanted to have this conversation about not only the youth of Chicago, but about certain areas in Chicago and the feeling and what make it a bit more, like, I guess, palatable, make it, just
specific to this place, right?
Exactly.
This piece shouldn't exist in Poughkeepsie, right?
No. Well, it
could. If Poughkeepsie's watching, this is for sale.
But, to sit or to stand with them and allow them the space to say, well, this one's me. And to see why they identify
and you saw that happening.
Yeah, with these particular pieces. And there is a sort of organized confusion when it comes to the way that I've placed the sculptures, to sort of line them up in a row and to have them all in, very militarized sort of standing, but then to offset some, to have some over here to the left and to the right, because I feel like that sort of embodies the nature and the spirit of us, as individuals, especially within America. We're not all, look at Congress, we're not all in one place. I
don't want to look at Congress.
So, to have these kids identify with that right away and say, well, this one's me because I think this way, and the way that she's standing is, outside of this other grouping and so forth. So,
but it's cool because it's not literal. It's kind of abstract, right? It's a slight offset of the sculpture, it's a slight turn of the pose that enables a wide range of participants to have separate relationships with each one.
Absolutely.
And I think what's amazing about that is that it's a designed solution, but when you put it out into the public square, you're at it. You can set those relationships up, but you can't control them necessarily.
Exactly.
That's got to be a really fun part of the process.
It's great. It's amazing. And I mean, again, to see the people interact and, that sort of language. And again, with art being, what it is, everyone has their own interpretation on what these are and, what that is. And everyone has their own unique experience with that piece. So,
while you and I will never get the joy of giving birth, I would say. The moment of birthing an object.
It's pretty close to it.
It's as close as we're going to get. Ladies and gentlemen, Hebru Brantley. Round of applause.